Welcome to the Tarot Coven Cast. Real people, real talk, real magic. Hello out there, lovely listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Tarot Coven Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jasmine.
I'm Jekanovia.
And I'm Jessie.
And this time on the show, we're continuing on our journey through the suits of the tarot. This part of our adventure takes us into the realm of water as we dive into the depths of our emotions with the suit of cups. We'll be talking about the energy of the cup suit overall, outlining some correspondences and misconceptions, and then we'll take a closer look at the cards from Ace through 10. But first, as we kind of teased in the premiere episode, we could definitely spend an entire episode or more just getting to know each other even better, but we figured maybe we could just sprinkle that throughout a bunch of different episodes with some fun questions up front before we dive into our main event. So this time around, Jekanovia came up with a really fun question for us. So Jekanovia, why don't you go ahead and ask away?
Yes, because I really want to know how you guys answer this. So I would like you to pick a tarot card that reminds you of a celebrity, a role model, like a movie or a TV show that you really like, book, a character, anything, but pick a card that kind of embodies that for you.
Okay, so I chose from Grace and Frankie. I chose Frankie, and I think she really reminds me of the Page of Cups. Who is getting excited?
You said Grace and Frankie. I was like, yes. Oh, that's so good.
So
yes.
I see the connection here because like Frankie is just this creative soul that totally follows her intuition. I mean, I'm sure it happened on the show, but I can just see her waking up one morning and telling Grace about a dream that she had and taking it totally seriously and thinking that it's, or believing that it's a sign from the universe and that she has to follow what was said in the dreams and just being so open to things like that, you know? And she follows her imagination. I always think about the like the fish in the cup in the Page of Cups. I feel like Frankie would look at that. I almost think that is Frankie, that unexpected playfulness, just that childlike energy. But I also think that she would see a fish in a cup like that and just like take it to mean everything. But she also doesn't take life too seriously. I mean, it's a weird thing to say. It's like she takes signs and these intuitive hits really seriously, but the rest of life is just so fun and I don't know, easygoing, and she's just super bubbly. She sees beauty in unexpected things. She's got this playful energy. She's a little bit spacey. And I think it's that childlike energy in a way that sort of turns me off of connecting her with the Queen of Cups instead, or even the King. It's just she's got that sort of zest for life that I feel like the Page of Cups really has. I want to say she's an old soul, but a young spirit, which is like saying the total opposite. But I don't know. Does that make sense to you gals?
Yes.
So fun.
It so totally suits her.
Yeah, I love that for her so much. All right, Jessie, how about you?
Did you just have one?
Yeah, I just did one.
Okay, I just did one too. And I'm going for the role model. I'm like taking it in a serious vein. But as I was trying to think about, who am I really inspired by right now? And Dr. Zach Bush, MD, he's an endocrinologist, came to mind because of his work with regenerative farming and really putting out there the message that our soil and the health of our soil is so important and directly represents our own health as a collective. And so in my mind, I'm like, at first I was like, gosh, it's very Emperor vibe. And I'm like, no, it's really more King of Pentacles. But then as I thought about it, I was like, no, this is Seven of Pentacles vibes for sure, because it's really about that sustainable approach to life and kind of doing that long term, like I'm the envision of what this could be and the practice of bringing in sustainable, regenerative farming practices and how that impacts us on a greater scale, and just really tenaciously talking about something that is very important and impacts us all, that a lot of people either don't know about or think about or just haven't been made aware of it. And I love his demeanor is so, it's coming from a place of such love. Like if you ever listen to him talk, and he's done a gazillion podcasts, but he truly just has the heart of a very gentle warrior spirit. And I love the approach that he takes with just, his medical background, but also just his love for our planet. So yeah, that's who I came to think of. And if you haven't heard of him, Dr. Zach Bush, check him out. He's just extremely inspiring, and we all need to have inspiring people in our lives right now.
Mm-hmm. I love the journey that you took from the Emperor to the King of Pentacles to the Seven of Pentacles. I love what you landed on, but I get little hints and vibes from all three of those, at least from your explanation, for sure.
Oh, thank you. He could embody each of those. But yeah, I think where he's at right now, where we're all at, it's like, nope, we are putting in these stakes in the ground, and we are going to work to bring back our microbiome in the soil and save the way we can farm and make nutrient dense food for the whole planet.
I love that. And I love that you landed on the 7 as well, because in the imagery, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith, he's actually gazing at the ground. He's contemplating. He's thinking about, that entire universe that's in the soil, that's in the garden, what makes it grow. So it just fits. It fits perfectly.
Thanks. What a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jekanovia.
Wasn't it fun? I had a hard time picking just one. I actually had a whole list, but I'm going to go with just the first one that I put down, because she's my favorite witch of all time, is Tiadama. I see her as the High Priestess. Now, if you're not sure who that is, that's from Pirates of the Caribbean. She ends up being Calypso.
Okay.
So the reason I picked High Priestess for her is because she has this really deep and earthy knowledge. She knows everything. You can't pull one over on her because she just has access to everything. But she doesn't flaunt it. She doesn't tell her secrets easily. You don't necessarily find out who she really is. Even like in any of her portrayal, you don't find out her true essence. So she's not afraid to keep things secret and keep things sacred from the rest of the world who just isn't ready for it. And I just feel like that's the High Priestess. She gives information and help when it's required, but not when it's demanded of her. And I love her.
Oh, fun.
So fun.
Any connection to the High Priestess is always.
Yeah. Plus, she's just really badass. So there's that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, I loved this question so much. When we were getting ready for this episode, I posed a different question in our shared document, and then Jekanovia came up with this one, and I was like, no, we're doing this one for sure. This is so much more fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we'll definitely do that, at the beginning of episodes. I think that was a lot of fun, and I think it's such a good way to not only learn, but continue learning about tarot cards as well, to link them with characters or people, like people in the real world, stuff like that. I think it gives layers to these cards. So.
Oh, yeah. And then when you can see them like that, then you start to see people, sure we already do in our own lives day to day. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's Queen of Swords right there. Or
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll have to throw this question out to our listeners, maybe when the podcast drops, because I am really curious to see what everyone else comes up with. This will be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I would love to know.
I'd like to see, too, if anybody chooses the same cards that we did, but finds somebody else in them, too. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if we might choose any of the same ones, which is why I wanted to keep it a secret before the show. But, no biggie.
Ha.
All right, well, let's dive into the cups. I'll kick us off with some of the sort of keywords and energies here. So obviously, it's the cup suit, so it's dealing with feelings and emotions, imagination, subconscious, psychic energy, dreams, your inner processes, relationships, receptivity, reflection, connecting with the heart, empowered acknowledgement of personal needs around those feelings and emotions and the relationship with self. And Jekanovia, you've got some interesting symbology here if you want to dive into that.
Absolutely. When I work with cups, I see them basically as Caradwin's cauldron. So if you're not familiar with Celtic mythology, Caradwin is like the great mother, the dark mother goddess. And she has this magical cauldron. And within this cauldron is the Awen. And in Druidic practices, and I'm not sure if that's outside Druid practices, but with Druids, the Awen is that creative force. It's like the spark of all inspiration of everything that's ever been created and ever will be created. So for me, the cups is like that cauldron symbology with the Awen inside. So this is unlimited potential.
Yeah.
In my personal practice, what I find with the cups is that they show up consistently kind of with matters of your journey of personal fulfillment, your fortune, your fate, your destiny, also with mindfulness and gratitude practices. So also with the deeper kind of underlying energies at play in any situation. So if you're thinking of that calm, glassy, still water, the surface of the water, but there's a strong current underneath. So it's almost like diving down and kind of finding out what that's made of.
Love that.
Ooh. Yeah, great visual. And I think in these suit series that we're doing, it's, always, I just think it's important to get people's take on it. And Lindsay Mack has certainly made an impression deeply on each of these. So I'll probably just pull a little snippet from her training just because I think she offers just a really unique perspective. And so for cups, there was this one little sentence that really jumped out for cups work. So she said, "This is a lifetime path and it's life work. Coming home to our hearts means becoming intimate with ourselves, having the courage to be vulnerable with self. It's one of the bravest things we can do. This is deep water, deep nourishment of the heart, drinking deeply of ourselves and ultimately growing to love ourselves, our process, our pace in an unconditional way." So again, more poetry from Lindsay Mack, but just a really beautiful summation, I think, of what the view of cups can be, especially in the current state of things.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I'm so glad that you're bringing this into our discussions because I remember being like blown away by what she had to say about the wands, and it's just the same here with the cups.
I love her unique perspective. She just really seems to have a way to articulate this really, I want to say broad, but it's actually not this broad generalization. It's a really fine-tuned definition, but it covers so much.
Yeah. And I love it because, if somebody is newer to tarot and there's nothing wrong with going along with kind of the typical meaning or what's been out there for a long time, as we think about intuitive tarot and connection to, where we're at in this moment and really just, it's a story of our own lives and how we're reacting to everything around us. It's really all we can do. This is where it's like, oh, this is about me. This is about me now.
Yes. Yeah, I feel really lucky because early in my tarot reading practice, I found Lindsay Mack and found her podcast and then took her course. So her views on tarot, while they're not exactly mine, have really influenced a lot of the way that I look at these cards. And I think that, she's just coming from such a, I want to say modern perspective, but also just like something so wholly her own,
Yes. And it's like this very soft, again, poetic layer that people can kind of consider to be part of it, to add something to whatever the cups means for them.
Yeah.
But it certainly isn't this, harsh stance, which I love. It's just an offering, like, just consider this, or, it may not always be this way, but when we think about cups, it's about growing to love ourselves and in an unconditional way, which really, once you do that, you've mastered your life. We all have the choice to get to that place, and hopefully we get there before we're done in this incarnation. But the quicker we can love ourselves, that's when we actually start living. So I do love her perspective in that way.
I don't know why this just all of a sudden came to me, but before we go any further, is there a cups card, ace through 10, that you feel like you're at in this moment? Like maybe this moment right now, or just like in general in life?
Ooh, I love that. I actually feel really 9 of Cups, I think. And I know we have talked in our smaller group just about feelings about the 9 of Cup, and it's more about the imagery of it. But when I think about what it means, it's really about just taking stock in all the work, that you've done, and really being proud of getting up every morning and, giving it your best shot. And even when we don't feel like we've given it our best shot, we've, tried again. And so I love to look at this as this, gratitude feelings, always being willing to take time to see the joy and just appreciate where I'm at.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love this question though.
Yay.
I'm going to have to say, I think I'm in a transition between the 5 and the 6 of Cups.
Oh, okay.
I think. So I'm kind of in between them both. I'm not one or the other. I'm kind of halfway. So it's all about that kind of taking stock. It's like, okay, it happened. It's done. It's over. So now it's time to move on. So, and then that 6 of Cups energy is kind of like, okay, you know what? It's not so bad. Let's stop and smell the roses for a bit. Let's think about what we've learned from this. How can we move forward? So that's kind of where I am.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought to even think about like somewhere in between. I really like that idea.
That's my Gemini rising.
Yeah. Yes. I like that. I'm going to say 3 of Cups, and not just because there's 3 of us. And I always see the 3 of Cups as sort of this like coven card in a way. But the past few months has really been about friendships for me, and growing friendships, and getting to a place of like finding people that I can just be my most whole, complete self with. And I just really feel like I'm right in that 3 of Cups energy. It's been a great time. Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's a lovely card to be in. That is for sure. All right. Well, let's quickly talk about some astrology of the cups overall. Of course, these are our water signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, which I'll be talking about. So each card rules over each sign rules over like 3 cards, which I talked about as well in the wands, and I'll be diving into here as well with the cups. And it's also sort of, I mean, at least in my practice, the cups correspond with the summer season because, of course, the sign of Cancer is the cardinal sign here, and that is what starts off the summer season with the summer solstice. Jess, do you want to get into some stuff about the chakras with the cup suit?
Yeah. And while we were talking about creativity, that certainly is very sacral chakra, but I just feel like the cups, and this certainly is not like the end all be all, but it is really about the heart chakra. So Anahata chakra, and it is right in your heart space. So big chest, proudly open. And in fact, anyone who's listening now, just kind of put your head up, put your shoulders back, open up that chest. We don't do it often enough. We're always hunched over our devices, right? And so just open that up, and kind of what that does for posture and feeling, and opening up the energetics to that chakra. But it's indicated by green color, sometimes pink, but this is just really where your love center is. And, our heart is like this super computer. It's I don't know the specifics, but it's really got more, I think, going on even than the brain. It's just this miraculous part of our body that obviously is really important. Keeps us alive, but energetically, it's so much about heart space. And so the more we can stay open, right? And not when we close off, when we're feeling like we need to protect ourselves. And Lindsay Mack does talk about this a lot, but it's like we kind of go back and we just try to close up so that we're not hurting our heart. But really what we need to do is open the heart and experience the feelings so that they can move through us. And that is what can help then move us into health. So we're not storing all of these heartbreaks, heartaches, or whatever those things are in our system, in our body, creating the disease that it can, manifest physically for us. But thinking about your heart space here, and what do you need? And this is like, okay, what does this look like? Certainly it means, if you don't have people around you that speak lovingly to you, speak lovingly to yourself. And if it's hard at first, write down some things and practice saying them to yourself. And, you are your best lover. You are your biggest champion in this life. You are the one that is the voice for your soul, right? So it's all about, if you don't have the strength or feel like you have that going for you now, you can move towards those empowered feelings. And I think that it's really lovely that the cups can help us do that. Use these cups cards as a tool to figure out where you're at, and the questions and the prompts that we're going to go through might be a place to start where you can really take stock of kind of where that heart space is at. And then as things are kind of divisive out there and polarized, and it tends to be somewhat, and we can feel a lot of energy in this heart space from what's going on. And even the more so to just nourish and make sure that you are taking breaks when you need to, and giving yourself the love that you need to, and filling up your life with beautiful things. So very much cups energy around our heart chakra.
All of that was so beautiful. I just kept thinking, I don't know why, but I kept thinking about a flower and like how delicate it is, and how we just treat it with so much care. And I don't know, that's the visual I was getting.
Yes, I have a really, really beautiful visual meditation that I love to use when I'm doing Reiki, but we'll share the link, Jasmine, because it's available for free. I like to use In Time app, but it's called the Flower Garden in Your Heart. And it's really the idea that the more flowers, more beautiful blooms we give away, they just keep growing. And that's how love works. It's exponential. There's no end to it. That does not run out. It's our universal love is, we can tap into it at any time. And so, it's the visual of like, for the people that I love, the people that I'm close to, and even the people that are difficult in my life. If you visualize giving them this beautiful bouquet, you're kind of just surrounding that experience with love. And with that, when the love steps in, then all of those other feelings, they have to retreat, because I do feel like there is no more powerful emotion or energy in this whole universal system than love. So we'll share the link, and I would invite everybody to do that. Just listen to that meditation and walk through the visualization. It's very healing.
I feel so ooey gooey, mushy wushy. I love it.
I just love hearing Jess talk. Oh, God,
you guys are sweet.
I love it.
Jess's heart chakra meditation hour.
Yes. Sign me up.
100%.
You guys are sweet.
Now, Jess, I was actually really interested because you first mentioned about the sacral and about that creative energy, and then you talked about the heart. And it's interesting to me because when I think about my sacral chakra, all I can think about is a connection to the heart, because if you want that authentic, true, powerful, creative energy, you need to have it come from the heart. So it almost like it has to rise up, I suppose. So anyway, that's why it kind of really struck me that you just happened to mention that. I was like, wow, you just like got in my head.
Well, it was the Celtic connection that brought it to mind when you were talking about, this creative place and that source of energy. And I was like, wow, you're right. There is a lot of that sacral, because it's the joy too, right? Our sacral is where we experience joy in all forms. And so of course that is connected to heart space. So beautiful. Love it.
Oh, so perfect. So perfect.
All right. Well, those are all things that the cup suit definitely is and are. And why don't we chat about a few things, a few misconceptions that we kind of see about the suit? For me, I really think that this is not, I think maybe it's first time readers, maybe it's more old school readers. I don't know. I'm not going to like point any fingers, but I think that the cup suit gets painted as just being about external partnerships or romantic relationships. And I think that this is, I mean, Jessie, I think you touched on it, but it can really be about a journey to self-love, or just a path to sort of an increased emotional maturity and emotional awareness. I think that, I just talked about the Three of Cups being so much about friendship, and there's a love within friendship, but it's not just the romantic stuff, right? So, and I think it can be about understanding your relationship with dreams and your own intuition, and getting in touch with your imaginative side and all of that kind of thing. So how about you gals? Any misconceptions to illuminate here?
Yeah, I find it's not the cups is not always just about those intangible feelings. It's not always about that heart space, a relationship, emotion. It can also be something like a business or a cause, a career, a charity, a hobby, even a place that you're really deeply connected to or you've invested your energy into. So it can also be talking about that, especially when you consider other cards that might be around it in a spread.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And as I was thinking about this, what came to mind is not even so much like a misconception, but we often confuse if we are not like fully self-aware. And I'm 43 now. So I've had some years, right? And I'm getting there. I still have work to do. But how I would think about what like readings for cups energy maybe 10 years ago versus now will be much different because I don't think I was as aware of what's truly like heart feelings versus my logical brain feelings and thoughts. And so it's really that what is truth versus what is actually the ego. And there's a lot of great podcasts and things on this, but I recently read a book called The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself. And it's by Michael Singer. So Jasmine, I got another link for you coming your way for the show notes, but
bring it on.
It's a shorter read, but so good. And one of the things that really stood out to me, it's like when we think about everything that goes on in our brain, that manic mind, right? If we were to put that voice and embody it in someone in our lives, so let's just say we were going to make this, put that voice, put it on the couch and listen to it. I mean, you think about all the crazy things we tell ourselves. You're not good enough. You can't do it. Why would you try? Blah, 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 blah. Name it all. All the things that are ego. That is not truth. That's not love from self. If that was in a person, we would kick that person out of our life. We'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me that way. But we allow ourselves to talk to ourselves that way. And so it's the idea of coming to recognize, is this truth and love that I'm, is this my actually highest self talking to me? Or is this more of that ego, analytical, I got to keep this body safe voice coming through? And so with the cups, we can practice this idea of, is this a love? Is kind of this emotional heart space of truth? Or is this more of the egoic thinking? So kind of a rabbit hole on that one, but it's a great book. And yeah, it's for all of us to just think about these things. And as we mature and realize that, oh yeah, all those thoughts, that actually isn't true.
Yes. Yeah, I really like, that's a lot to think about. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, me too. It's like that whole along the same lines of recognizing your intuition versus your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your,
fear, ego.
Instincts. Your instinct okay. Versus intuition.
Perfect. Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah, so good. Well, do we want to start moving into individual cards now?
Ooh, let's
start with the ace because I'm sorry, it's usually the prettiest card. I'm not, okay. I'm Cancerian and we talked about this before we started recording, but I know I'm supposed to love cups. They're not my favorite suit, but I love the Ace of Cups in almost every deck I've ever seen is just so gorgeous and beautiful. So it's like Holy Grail beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like you were just at like a Tarot Anonymous club or something where you
I know. You don't even understand how guilty I feel admitting that. I'm sorry. I failed all the Cancerians in the world.
Right.
And I don't
Get in the confessional box.
Yes. I'm grounded from tea for a week. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Never.
It's okay.
No.
So do you guys have how do you guys feel about the cups personally on, now that we're all sharing our secrets?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. It's not my top. And as I kind of lean into them more, I realize that there is a lot that I can learn and be taught by them. And I probably should spend some more time there.
It's interesting. I don't think I have a favorite suit, or if I do, I think it just keeps switching. So I can't say that, I love or hate the cups. I mean, I guess I don't hate any cards, but it does have some of my favorite cards in the deck though. So there's that, I guess. But yeah, I'm kind of like, it's not way up there or anything.
You guys are so much more sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll divert our attention back to the ace now. So the Ace of Cups has some key terms that we've come up with here. So it's about beginnings, love, opening, healing, emotional flow and clarity, love of source. As Jess was saying, it's that love of yourself, love of who you really are, and embracing and adoring yourself.
And then to get into the astrology, as with all aces, this is just sort of the root of water or the essence of water. So when I was thinking about what is the essence, so what came to me was heart-centered energy, intuitive energy, unfiltered joy and pleasure. It runs deep, and it's sort of opening a dialogue through emotions.
Questions around this card. What are you actively doing in the interest of your own well-being and fulfillment? In what ways are you overpouring from your cup? Why do you feel the need to give more than you take?
Good one.
I think everyone can spend some time with that question right now. What is the opportunity that is presenting itself right now? How can you grow or benefit from it? Are you accepting the gifts and blessings being offered to you? If not, what makes you feel unworthy? So, yeah, as Jekanovia would give you a little talking to, do you believe you're wiser than the universe, God, or deity? No. Then why would you question their gifts? Certainly do not question yours. And then what are you being called to do in order to love yourself more?
Beautiful. Good start.
Aces.
I think too, if someone's just getting started with tarot, those are really good just journal prompts too. Perhaps if you're not comfortable pulling a card on that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I saw this section. So when I created the outline for our wands episode, the reason I included the questions is because I do have this like idea for a book where it would be a spread for every tarot card. And so I was trying to come up with questions for every tarot card, obviously, right? But even when I do create spreads, I always write, if you don't want to pull cards or if you don't pull cards, these are just journal prompts, or these are just questions that you can think about like in the shower while you're driving or whatever, you know, like it doesn't have to be that you have to pull a card for every single one.
Yeah. And if we could all just take stock more, just do that introspective check-in daily. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about tarot, but yeah, you don't even need to do tarot with it. It's like, just give yourself a moment to gauge where you're at and give yourself the opportunity to ask these questions that, you know, we so often don't. It's almost like, and I don't even know that we don't trust ourselves. It's like, oh, these are really beautiful thoughts and maybe they are important to me, and just, you know, serve it up and let's see what comes out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So speaking of kind of that dialogue and what's, you know, going on, let's talk about the Two of Cups. So in here, we see the soul connection aspect, acceptance, bonds, integration, and relationships. It could mean a contract or an agreement, external influences, hesitancy, partnerships, giving and receiving, and maybe just meeting yourself where you are at. I will say that what I think we can all agree to is that if you draw the Two of Cups, it does not necessarily mean that there is a romantic relationship in your future or has anything to do with romance or love in that way, right? I mean, any thoughts on that?
Oh, totally agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that Two of Cups for me, like I always revert back to the Rider-Waite-Smith because it was my first real tarot deck. So of course that's what the imagery is. But in that deck, the Two of Cups, the two people holding the cups, it looks as if the one is actually reaching out and trying to take the cup of the other, and she's hesitating. So for me, it's not such a true love romance card. It's almost like, why are you allowing this? Why are you pressured? Why are you allowing yourself to be pressured into this?
So interesting with that body language.
Yeah. And when we get to the twos, we always are thinking or considering the aspect of balance, right? And in the Smith-Waite, I haven't spent too much time before, but the symbol is the snakes rising, and it's actually tied back to Ayurveda or yoga. It's the Shiva and the Shakti and the snakes as they're rising. So think of Kundalini rising up the spine. You need both the feminine and the masculine energy aspects to, it's almost like they are not able to fire up without each other, right? So it takes both of those energies to kind of create that awakening. And yeah, so thinking about the balance within ourselves of that masculine, feminine energy and how important that is for us to maintain overall health and balance.
Yeah, totally. I once heard, I cannot remember his name, but I will definitely find it and put it in the show notes. He does have a podcast called Cosmic Cousins. And his take on this card is that the one figure looks like the Fool and the one figure looks like the High Priestess. And it's like a coming together of those sort of parts of yourself, I guess, because the Fool and the High Priestess do feel somewhat different. I mean, they're different archetypes, right? But I always thought that was interesting to think about it like that, the sort of duality within you, like meeting each other halfway in a sense or something like that. But I will put this person in the show notes so that we...
Is it Jeff Hinshaw?
Yes, thank you.
I need to check this out.
Cosmic Cousins.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and speaking
all the years I've been looking at this card, I've never noticed that before.
Well, and I think he said something too. It's like they're in their like weekend outfits or something. Like they're not quite dressed as they are in their own card, but it's like it's their casual wear or something.
They're in their civvies, as us army brats call it. They're in their civvies.
Exactly. All right. So for the astrology, this is represented by Venus in Cancer. And Venus and the title is love. And so Venus is a planet of love, beauty, pleasure, senses, values, and it's a planet that brings things together. And Cancer is a nurturing, compassionate, receptive, and protective sign. So together, this kind of brings us to security and safety in relationships, feeling safe to be vulnerable, finding value in compassionate bonds, balance and beauty in relationships, giving and receiving love, a nurturing bond that's not exclusive to romantic partnerships or even partnerships in general, but could just be a relationship with yourself.
I really enjoy that kind of, I love the way you always kind of take it back. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a relationship with someone else, because I think I know we already talked about that in Misconceptions, but I think it's so important to keep reiterating it because it's so easy to just associate it with partnerships with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, some people don't even have just a two-person partnership, like romantic relationships look so different. So to make it fit into this one little tiny card doesn't feel right.
Exactly. That's an excellent point too, is that, just because it may look one way to us, it doesn't mean maybe someone we're reading for, it may look completely different. So it's important to take away those barriers.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, some of the questions that we came up with are you being pressured into a decision or into giving up pieces of yourself? Is there a true balance in this energy exchange? So it's, turn inward, consider, is this really benefiting me as much as I think it's going to? Does this agreement or contract fill your cup? What is your motivation for accepting the terms? And this was a really good one from Jess. If you aren't in a place of full acceptance, can you honor and acknowledge that what is here and just be present with all of the parts of ourselves, not just the ones that are easy to love? That's a big question.
Yeah. Sometimes the hardest one, but so important to consider. Yeah. Cups are deep. Woo! We're on 3 and we're just
so
like, I'm
surrender.
like, geez, this is like, you could do a podcast on each of these cards.
Water signs are no joke,
Jekanovia, do you want to take us through the terms of 3?
Yes. Sorry about that. I was distracted by a cat. Okay. So what else is new, right? So our 3 of Cups, some of the key terms are ritual, coven, a celebration, joy and abundance, friendships, sacredness, collaboration, coming together for a cause, small victory. There's still work to do, but, still celebrate, and good news coming your way. There's also, Jess mentioned this one. It's really interesting too. It's a reference to your support teams, like your spirit guides or ancestors. So maybe it's not even on a physical level. It's not your physical relationships.
Oh, I love that.
Jess, I'd really like to hear you expand on this one a bit. The mind, body, spirit reference.
Yeah. So in thinking about our whole selves, we obviously have our meat suit that we walk around with, but we have levels of spirit beyond that in our energetic bodies. And so I love to think about this as this can mean that, what are all aspects of ourselves that we are either celebrating or connecting to. And I think about threes being, a very creative number. A lot of times we think of, the mind, body, spirit, the Trinity. There's a number of these things that come in threes that you can relate to it. But, when we take in mind not just our physical space, but what we're thinking, then also how our energy is flowing out to others. Like that's just a really interesting way to look at the card. And I also love to think of this card as, I'm a mother. I have daughters, not that you have to have daughters to feel this way, but I feel very much about my children with this card. And it's kind of like our relationship together in this way.
That's super interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because it's not something I would have ever thought about, just not being a mother myself, but I love that insight.
Thank you. All right, astrology. I'm excited to get into this one.
Well, so this is Mercury in Cancer, and the title is Abundance. And Mercury is, of course, our planet of communication, thinking and learning, and travel. And Cancer, as I already mentioned, is, compassionate, nurturing, receptive. And so this to me means sharing emotions. It's the people that you can be most open and honest with, or it's a situation that maybe helps you come out of your shell. It's intuitive communication through emotion, or in other sort of unspoken ways. Maybe it's just in an art form. It's a connecting of mind and heart. It's free-flowing communication. It's the ace and the 2 are sort of the opening, and the 3 is a deepening.
Ooh, yes. Stepping into our numerological lineup. And I love that. So questions to consider with our 3 of Cups. What can you celebrate in this moment? Because if this is not in your knowledge, but in every moment, even the darkest ones, there is something to celebrate if we look at it. It's purely choice, right? What are we grateful for? How can we show up, or how can I show up for the people I care about? What do I need from my circle? Who can I reach out to for input or feedback, a second opinion, or encouragement? Collaboration, even for the introverts. There is a way to be introverted and still collaborate.
Yes.
That's true.
Collaborate with your spirit guides.
Yeah, exactly, Jekanovia. Speaking from experience, it can still be a thing.
Awesome. All right. So let's move along to 4. So some of the terms that represent this card: pause, the sacred pause, digesting and assimilating, releasing that fear of missing out, any emotional boundaries, trusting the timing of things. Sometimes it can indicate stubbornness or being defensive or missing an opportunity, maybe because we're just unwilling to see things for what they are. Jekanovia, I have a couple notes here, so I'm going to let you come in and add your 2 cents.
Okay, excellent. So considering your options, and it can be also symbolize procrastination. Like, what are you ignoring? What are you trying not to look at right now? And what are your reasons behind not wanting to look at that thing? Standing firm in your truth and refusing to accept influence from others. So, outside opinions, not letting them, sway you from what you know is right for you. Taking time for introspection and ignoring your intuition. It can also be a warning that's like, hey, you're not listening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also like to consider that while something is being offered, maybe we just have to recognize that it's not the best time to move on that opportunity or accept whatever it is. It's more of just that it's being held out there, and we either need to just wait and trust or do some work before it's time. So yeah, just a few thoughts on that 4. And I always love this card because sometimes I feel like this is really that card of standing your ground. Like, I'm really trusting myself on this. And while sometimes that does equate to stubbornness, maybe sometimes it's really just holding on to your convictions and your values.
Yeah, stubbornness isn't always a bad thing.
No,
says
it's not.
Me.
I do always think it's funny that this card has this funny cloud hand.
I know. It's like, where is it coming from? Don't take candy from strangers.
It's like interesting that it shows up, it's in the ace and then not 2, not 3, but 4. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's almost like it's the same hand from the Ace of Cups, but I don't know.
That's what I mean. It's like, why now? Like, why? Yeah. I don't know. But does that happen in other suits? I don't think it happens in the wands. Like, I'm trying to remember from our discussion a couple weeks ago. I feel like the wand isn't offered again.
Yeah, I don't think so, actually.
Yeah, not from a cloud hand. Yeah.
Hey, but wait. Temperance. Temperance is praying back and forth. Maybe Temperance. Maybe the angel is offering some, I don't know. I have to think about that.
Yeah. I have the Temperance card pulled out as well because we have this major with the cups represented and the connection there with the water. And obviously water is a theme throughout many cards, but the cups in particular, with that balance, who knows? I mean, it certainly seems like this is wherever you're at, it's a pause to consider maybe that higher level of self and what your soul really wants in that moment.
That's yummy brain candy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listeners, if you have a deck while you're listening, I definitely recommend pulling out the Suit of Cups, but then super interesting to think about adding Temperance in there and then maybe just like sift through the majors and see if there's anything else that sort of fits in or has an interesting like visual sort of thematic link or something. All right, so this is the moon in Cancer, and the title is Luxury, which kind of threw me for a couple of minutes, but then I was wondering, maybe it's because the moon is at home in Cancer. So, I talked about this on the Wands episode, but when a planet is in its own home, it's like in the sign of its domicile. It kind of, how I put it is that the moon can do moon things in moon ways with very little effort. So it is sort of a little bit luxurious, I suppose, in that way. The moon is our emotions, our intuition, our receptivity, a side of ourselves that we may only reveal to those who are close to us. And you guys all know about Cancer already. It's the nurturing, compassionate, but sometimes also moody sign. And I think that this is the ebb and flow of our moods. And I think that this is sort of reflected in the different ways that this card can resonate. We were talking about maybe this is a sign that you're being stubborn, but stubborn's not always a bad thing, right? So this is a card that when it comes up, you have to be really honest with yourself as to what side of the coin you're sort of on in this moment, right? But it's also, the moon in Cancer is a great time to nest, rest, and reflect. It's comfort seeking. It's a highly emotionally driven card. And at times it could mean that we're being a little moody or overprotective. But again, that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. Good connections there.
Yeah. I like the idea of taking out maybe the negative connotations of things like moody. Maybe that's just because, Cancerian here, but it's sometimes maybe it's good to feel the feels. Maybe it's good to, just express what you're feeling, which I guess, that could be considered moody. So,
well, and I think that Cancer gets that keyword or that description because it's ruled by the moon, and the moon is constantly shifting and changing. It's going through a different phase every single day of its cycle. And so that's just how the moon rolls, and I mean, that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. I'm not going to, lie. I mean, I can be moody as fuck, but,
Yeah, Cancer moon here. I totally get it.
Yeah. We're allowed. We're totally allowed.
Yeah.
I don't even have a Cancer moon to use as an excuse, people.
It's okay. You know what? You're an empath. You're getting it from me. It's okay. Okay. So let's move on to some questions. What is your intuition trying to tell you? Are you reading the signs for what they are or what you want them to be? So that's a big one. I had to learn that one the hard way. It's like, am I seeing this because it's actually something to see, or am I just looking too far into it? Are you feeling your own emotions, or are they secondhand or projected from someone else or something else? How can you honor your sacred knowing by going inward and trusting divine universal alignment? I like that phrase, that divine universal alignment. It's recognizing that you're a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
So, it almost helps us deal with our, I'm going to call them mundane, air quotes, problems, because we realize that we are part and connected to that universal divine energy. And can you take a step outside the emotional aspect of a situation and simply be an observer with impartiality to the outcome?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes, that's a lesson I've been learning, Jaconovia. Really, I can tend to be kind of emotionally reactive to things, but my partner, he is a saint. I swear, he's highly ascendant. He just sits and watches and lets everybody else spin out and then of course just comes in with like this really amazing truth bomb. And I have learned more from him throughout the years, but when we can just take a step back and observe, it is very fascinating what comes up, because yes, so much of how we tend to react in the irrational way right away is so emotional and so often not foundational in truth. And so I do love that this question is here, because let's just take a moment, take that pause, step outside as the observer, and can we detach from the outcome in that? And that is a hard lesson to learn for most, I will say. Some people, it could be something easy, but I think it's a lifetime of learning on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can also take it a step further and consider, is this something you've heard from someone else before? Is your reaction just a repeated pattern from somewhere else that you learned?
Totally. Yes.
Yes.
Ooh, I could get way down on a whole other topic on that one, but I won't. But I will say, if you have a chance to listen to any Bruce Lipton podcast, he talks about the programming that we basically are given by the time we're 7. We, by our parents or caregivers or anyone that's around us, we have a lot of these things that basically are put on us that aren't necessarily who we are or what we think. And we spend the rest of our lives trying to strip those away. So it is fascinating, but
I heard Bruce and I thought you were just going to say, if you can listen to any Bruce Springsteen.
And Bruce Springsteen.
And I was like, where is this going? This is interesting.
Hey,
you never know.
Has some very, he is kind of a sage in his own way. I will say, if you have a chance to, I haven't read his full autobiography, but it is very good. And we can also learn from Bruce Springsteen. Jasmine, yes.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, let's move into the 5s. Let's start with some key terms, which is loss, sorrow, grief, sadness, surrender to darker emotions, feeling your feels, not rushing the grieving process, and acknowledging grief. So, and also, I find that this one is a lot of letting go of the past, releasing emotional baggage that you've been carrying with you, which could be like, resentment from a past relationship into a new one. So you don't need it. It's not helping you. It's not serving you. Learn from it and let it go. Being mindful that you aren't using your pain as a weapon or an excuse. That can be a hard one. Accepting failure of something important to you and learning from your mistakes.
All right. So this is Mars in Scorpio. The title is Disappointment, and Mars is at home in Scorpio. Mars is a planet of passion, desire, ambition, and will. And Scorpio is a passionate, secretive, intuitive, obsessive, powerful sign. And so this is a very emotionally charged card. It's intensified by Mars's passion. But because Scorpio is this fixed sign and we're right in the middle of the suit, I also think it's about kind of maintaining emotional resources and then diving into the heart of the matter to sort of find the truth of something, which takes time, which is why we need to feel our feels and allow this process to happen. But it's a really raw emotional power and desire. And I think that obsessive qualities can emerge when we're not careful. So, you want to feel your feels and sit in the shit for a bit, but then you get out. You got to recognize when it's time to move on from that. And Mars's drive and Scorpio's willingness to go deep can kind of help you to see what's beyond the surface of whatever pain or regret or emotional baggage or whatever it is specifically that you might be dealing with when this card comes up.
So we're going to ask everyone to think about something that maybe we push aside because we don't want to deal with it or deal with the feelings or feel the feelings. I know I certainly have these things that come up, and what happens, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, is when we don't feel through the feelings, they get stuck inside us energetically and then manifest physically, in many ways. Like, so if you're really angry, often this may come out as heartburn or, thinking about this eruption in your stomach and having issues there. So it's very much this spiritual, emotional, and physical connection. So the questions, in what moments of triggering or contraction can we ask, why do I feel this way? And just taking a pause to go back. I had a disagreement. I had this conversation. It was a very lively conversation with my partner about a week ago. And as I was talking through it and I was kind of raging a little bit, I realized in a moment, I clicked and I was like, oh, I'm actually not angry about what we're talking about at all. I am triggered by something that happened in a group text. And so I had to kind of like process through that verbally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my prettiest moment, but afterward I was like, I'm sorry. That was so not the connection there. But because I really thought about like, why am I feeling this way? This is kind of coming up. So my little example there, can you allow the grief or emotions in your life to come up and out in order to clear the way for healing and renewal? And I will say, if we are sitting or we're not really moving our energy, it's harder for us to move those emotions out. So you move a little bit, flow a little bit, just take a walk, do some yoga. That is also that connection to grief and emotions and getting it out of the system. In Reiki, if you're having Reiki and getting chakras aligned, a lot of times the energy comes out in multiple ways. You could maybe get tense in your hands or have heat, or you might cry or laugh or just feel tightness as it releases. And so it has to come out, people. And if we can clear away these things, then it provides an opportunity for healing, and it certainly impacts us on all levels, from immunity to overall health. And last question here, are you willing to inventory all the parts of yourself and embrace the pieces that may be hard to accept and support?
Ooh,
yes.
Love that one.
Yes.
I'm glad that you keep bringing up the connection between, letting that energy flow and how it can manifest physically, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person that has experienced that. I know that many of our listeners probably know what that feels like. But as we're talking about the 5 of Cups here and you bring up that concept again, I'm like, yeah, I get stomach aches when this happens. Like, if I don't allow myself to just deal with that, that's how that manifests for me. So like, that's totally a real thing.
Oh, and we hang on to these things for years sometimes. Yeah. And it's like, why? And yes, our Smith-Waite representation of this 5 of Cups, be the flowing river. Just let it go.
Yeah. I think, was it Beatty Tarot that used to say, but there's a bridge there, so just go get over it or something.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Oh,
that's sassy and I like it.
Yeah.
Yes, get over it. Okay, well, 6 of Cups. So we're now in the second part of our numerological lineup here, and some terms to consider for this card: rediscovering joy, productive nostalgia, a safe space, security, inner child, comfort in vulnerability, appreciating and noticing the little things. And now, like, it's with this card, after all of the grief acknowledgement that you've done in the 5 of Cups, we can fill that cleared out space with new kinds of openings of the heart. So this is really that renewed heart opening, seeing things as new. We have all the power, people. We have absolutely all the power to heal ourselves when we choose love and choose to remove those things from our space and our being that, we were never meant to be brought down by, I think, just all of the negative and evil and anything that's in this world. Our true nature, our highest self, is a place of love and complete acceptance. And so allowing yourself to experience that.
So this is the sun in Scorpio, and the title is Pleasure. And this has always kind of thrown me for a loop that this is the sun in Scorpio, but I've come to see it as like, I think this is, some of the stuff that you were just talking about, Jessie, I think this is a major lesson for people that maybe have Scorpio sun or Scorpio placements, like coming to this greater place of joy. Because I think that very often we can stay in the 5 of Cups energy for too long. But anyways, the sun is identity, personality, authenticity, where we shine. It's the life force. And as I've said, Scorpio is passionate. It can be obsessive and secretive. It's also intuitive. So this is kind of a place where the internal emotions and emotional processes are coming into the light. And we need to sort of look for or remember that we're already in a safe space to be vulnerable. I also think that this is where nostalgia can be a refuge, but it can also be a place where we get lost a little bit. But no matter what, it's a time when we're going sort of beyond the surface to see what the purpose of maybe some of these memories or feelings are, and then sorting through that and also just letting go and stepping further into that joy or that authenticity.
So good. And Brene Brown, of course, comes to mind with all this talk of vulnerability and also just the, being in the now and appreciating the moment here. And just getting over it. Enneagram numbers come to mind for this. That might be a little tricky. You say the Scorpio, but I'm also thinking about the Enneagram ones who tend to be very hard on themselves. So the grudge holders, right? Cannot let things go if they if they think they've made a mistake. And, that's just one number of many, but I'm thinking about, can you just enjoy the moment, let it go, open up to others, be vulnerable, rediscover the joy. Love it. It's a very happy card.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's actually if I have to pick cups, it's one of my preferred cup cards.
If you had to.
If I have to, I think, you know what? I'm just going to say it's because it looks like they're like gardening or something. So that's why.
Oh, yeah.
I also like the analogy of like they're appreciating what they've grown out of these emotions and out of these past experiences. So just that bit too.
It's interesting. Before we move on, I don't know. We're looking at these cards with fresh eyes, I guess, but there is a figure in the back, like walking away with a spear or something. I think that's really interesting. Ooh. It's almost like kind of letting the old guard go, or kind of letting down, kind of giving the soldier that's protecting your heart a time out, a break so that you can open up. But I don't know that I've actually noticed that figure before. So
I don't think I have either. And and let's be honest, sometimes somebody leaving your life may feel like the 5 of Cups, but it turns out that it's probably the best possible thing that could have happened. So maybe that.
Yes.
I also, I've seen him in the background a few times now. And that's when I started thinking about this card in terms of being like, okay, you've gone through the 5 and you are now in a safer space to be open and return to that space of joy and authenticity. And so seeing that as more like kind of just the flip side. I mean, and again, it depends on where you're coming from when you pull these cards, right? But also seeing it as, you're safe. It's okay. You can be you,
Yes. Yes. Fun. Okay.
Sorry
to interrupt.
Good. No, I never noticed him. So I'm glad you did. That's great. Okay. So we'll move on with some questions. So what were things that you sought as a child, and how is that present or not present in your life now? What internal processes are ready to be made external? What are you getting ready to share? What experiences from the past might help you to rediscover a joy? How can you open your heart and offer it to yourself and or someone else?
Beautiful.
I love these. They're so good. Okay, so let's move on to the sevens. Some of the main terms for the Seven of Cups are decisions, feeling out your options, maybe some dream space, uncertainty, not forcing a choice. Let your mind wander with all the possibilities. And I find with this one too, it's almost be careful what you wish for. Just, don't jump into anything. Make sure that you've checked all those options first. It can almost sometimes be a warning.
Mm-hmm. And so for the astro stuff, it's Venus in Scorpio, and the title is, I think it's pronounced debauch, which I had to look this up. I wasn't too sure, but it also means like destroy or corrupt. And I wrote next to that, because I wasn't sure. I don't like, maybe this fits more with Venus in Scorpio, but I guess kind of like what you're saying there, Jekanovia, it resonates a little bit for sure. But Venus is in detriment in Scorpio, so it just has a harder time doing the things that it wants to do because, of course, Venus is this planet of love and beauty and pleasure, and it likes to bring things together, whereas Scorpio, it's ruled by Mars, which is a planet that separates, and Scorpio itself wants to dissect and examine and research, and so that's not really about bringing things together. But when you put these two things together, and honestly, I'm seeing this card in a completely new light because of the astrology correspondence here, but I'm seeing it now as Venus bringing sort of a beauty to that which we keep hidden. So it's shining the light on sort of the underside of things and asking us to find comfort there. These things that we keep hidden, maybe we don't have to keep them hidden anymore. And maybe we can show them to people, maybe it's just people that we feel comfortable enough sharing that with. But I think it can help also for us to see the value in that which we desire. This doesn't have to be anything logical. It can just simply be an acceptance of those feelings. So I feel like this is not anything that I've really associated with this card before, but trying to really see it through that Venus and Scorpio lens. So I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on what you guys think about that.
I've got a few thoughts. And as you were going through the astrology, I'm looking at the card again and seeing that Scorpio Venus connection. And, while there are so many possibilities here, if you look, let's say in the Smith-Waite representation, you've got the cup with the victory wreath or the holly wreath that was you usually see in the celebratory and the victorious depictions, but that happens to be sitting in the cup that has the skull on it. And so it's like, oh, wow,
right.
Okay, is that really what we want? Or is there something deception here? And it's almost like if we can connect with the Scorpio energy along with the Venus, it helps us to discern much more clearly what the truth is there with all these possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, hold on. I've got to figure out how I'm going to word this. Okay. So when you were talking about the value that you place on your desires, all I could think of is, are we really desiring what's going to fulfill us? Is that how we want to fill our cup? Which is very related to what Jess was just saying. And also, let's really inspect what we're filling our cups with already. Like, what can we get rid of right now that we don't need anymore, which is that Scorpio energy. So it's, a lot of that kind of back and forth, making decisions. Really, that's an interesting take, and I'm going to have to really think on that.
Yeah, cool. It's like I said, it's totally making me think about the card differently. So I don't know, listeners would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, and I would say it is a very, out of all the cups, it is a complicated card. Because there are so many ways it can go, and complicated doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but it's just, yes, layers upon layers of potential meanings here. That is just the magic that Pamela Coleman Smith infused in the illustrations here. I mean, it is not of this world, people. So some questions to consider for the Seven of Cups. Can you let yourself dream without any attachment or criticism? Let's just be free and set aside that critical roommate that lives within your mind. Are you willing to entertain what may not be available to be seen right now? The unknown. And can you just be? Can I just be? Oh, honestly, that's tough because we keep going after the next thing and thinking it will bring that peace and that joy and that love when really we are not we are unsettled in ourselves. And it's hard to stay there because we all know when we sit and we're quiet and we go inward, then we have to address the parts of ourselves that we may not be comfortable with. So again, it's just that reminder as we are just staying in this place when we can just be. We are allowing the feelings to move through us so that we can compost them into the earth or send them up to the heavens and make space for the love and the healing. Oh, yes. 8s now. Jasmine, one of Jasmine's favorite tarot cards, I believe. And still in the mix there. And so mysterious and lovely. So this is representing some soul searching. It could mean that fool energy of leaping, taking a chance, journeying, traveling, seeking, leaving something that's just indicating it's time to move. And Jaconovia, I love your notes here. Go ahead and read what you put.
When I see this card, I think of it a lot as crossing your T's and dotting your I's. So make sure that all of those loose ends are tied up before you move on so that nothing's going to come back and bite you in the ass or haunt you later. Make sure that you're not carrying your troubles with you when you're leaving. Leave those behind. Running away from problems is not going to fix them. There's a little bit of more tough love there. And it's time to walk away from an emotionally draining situation.
Yeah, truly a card that is indicating a transitional space here. And I think having the moon shining the way is such a beautiful part of this card. And really it's honoring what time, like the time that when we have these times in our life when it's important for us to leave something behind. And it is hard, or sometimes it's easy, but sometimes if there's those attachments there or something's been around for a while, it does make it harder to leave. But, we can either go and trust, or we may have to be forced into leaving, which is not always as enjoyable. So.
Yeah. And I love that you said it's a transformational space. And sometimes it depends on the depiction, but sometimes it's not just the moon, but it's an eclipse. And so that's a very transformational lunation. So I love that I think that's at least in the Smith-Waite version, but I think it differs from version to version. But yeah, I love that connection there. So this is Saturn in Pisces, and the title is Indolence, which is like a laziness. And again, I wrote, because I don't know about that. So, it's maybe it's the 8 of Cups where we can leave that one behind in the past. I don't know. We'll see as we move through it. But Saturn is the planet of boundaries and time, discipline, responsibility. And Pisces is this really imaginative and sensitive and sympathetic and selfless. Sometimes it can be a little escapist, but that's this like just really vast water sign. And so together, it's like seeking stability without feeling a stuckness. It's seeking better emotional security. Saturn encourages the boundary. It's like, you can say no and you can move on to the next thing. And maybe it's about changing old patterns so we don't become stuck. And it's knowing that you aren't trapped. Freedom is just one step away. We're shifting our understanding of ourselves, not the situation. What did I mean there? Shifting an understanding of yourself. Oh, okay. So it's like, maybe you're in a situation. No, what did I mean by this? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, well, whatever.
I love this. I was about ready to go. Dun, 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 dun,
I think what I was going for here is that maybe you're in a situation that you're not quite understanding or wanting to be a part of, but instead of like trying to maybe not run away from the situation, but there's something about yourself that you can change within the situation. I think that's kind of what I was going for there. I don't know. If it comes back to me, I will just chime in later. But I also was kind of wondering if maybe this is a Saturn cycle coming to an end. You know, Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And this does feel like a little bit of like Saturn return energy. It's very transformational and, you know, sort of moving on to the next level of things.
Yeah. And I love that you put, I mean, it really is about not remaining stagnant. I mean, we have to move and shift and pivot and learn. And we do this. I mean, from the time we were a baby, our brains miraculously, supercomputer, are firing and learning. And, you know, we didn't know what we know now back then. We've learned all of these things. And it's because we were able to adapt and shift thinking. And so all the more reason to just, Saturn kind of encouraging us, whether it's that return and makes it really obvious, but it's like, you have got to move. You've got to move on. Mm-hmm. When we stop moving and we stop learning and stop growing, we transmute. We die, you know? So this is a very important lesson. And I think Saturn helps us to move from those stuck spaces that seem very comfortable and safe, but it's that illusion of security and safety and pushes us into growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I with Jazz, when she was saying about shifting an understanding of yourself and not necessarily a situation, what that brought to mind for me was, it's like, you know, sometimes things just are the way they are, or a person is the way they are. They're not going to change. So what are you going to do about it? Yeah, that kind of energy, you know. So it's up to you now. Like, you pick and choose what's going to happen next, because this situation is not going to change.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
The reminder that we can only change ourselves. We can only control ourselves. We are the only.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves because nobody else is going to do it for us. So. Yes. Well, some of the questions for this card are, what has gotten us to where we are? Another one is, what has been a hard lesson, but ultimately a protection or up-leveling to high consciousness and awareness of self? Now, I was wondering if you can elaborate on that one a bit, because it's really interesting and I just want to really capture it.
When I always think of that higher consciousness, it's about us discovering who we are. So let's go back to that example a couple cards ago where I was talking about the Bruce Lipton and the programming that comes online. So depending on any circumstance that we're in, whether it's family or religion or things we were taught in school, you know, all these things are put on us, and it's really our life's journey to decide and figure out, does this resonate with me? Is it in alignment with who I am? Is this really me, or is this something that's been put on? And so I think the ultimate up-leveling throughout our lives is just realizing and accepting who we are and what is actually ours. You know, was this idea put in my mind from my parent? You know, do I actually think that? Now, I've come to that over the last few years quite a bit as I was, you know, kind of pulling myself out of this organized religion box and being like, whoa. Maybe I don't actually think this. And so, it's just allowing ourselves to check in and be like, is this really me? Or is this something that I've chosen to take on, almost like a coat I've decided to wear that. And I think there was another analogy in the other podcast about like the sweater that doesn't fit. We just got to pull it off. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, so much like liberation energy. I really like it. Yeah. One
that's
final
how I feel
question
about the 8. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
But
Go ahead.
the word liberation, like, it's just, this feels like so often just a permission slip. Not that you even need it, but sometimes you just do need that little nudge. It's like, you can go. You're free.
Yeah. And it's okay to have those moments of like, you know, who am I?
Yeah.
Whose life is this? This is not what I wanted for my life. Yeah. And then realizing like, dude, I gotta do something. I'm the only person who can shift this.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We don't need permission to do what's best for us. Because, you know, we were all programmed. We always had to, you had to raise your hand to go to the washroom for crying out loud. So we have to deprogram ourselves.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny that you brought up that example, because I was watching a show the other day, and this girl was in class and she just got up and left and went to the washroom. And inside I was like, oh my God, she didn't put up her hand and ask. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So we have one more question for that card, and then we'll move on to the 9. So the final question for the 8 of Cups is, what is not meant to come with us anymore? Perhaps something that no longer is in alignment or is working for us. So that, if you were going to answer that question, I would strongly suggest pulling far more than one card, because there's a lot of aspects to really look at that. All right. So moving on to the 9s, we've got some key terms. We've got contentment, fulfillment, gratitude, remembering and honoring our gifts and talents, internal and sacred success, also welcoming and sharing your abundance, having a generous spirit, being mindful that your pride and ego aren't what's driving you, that you're not looking for praise when you're doing good things, and beware of the used car salesman person and really examine what's being offered to you. Make sure they're not actually burdens in disguise. Another interesting thing to consider is I've seen this card interpreted before as kind of narcissism and gatekeeping, even kind of as a warning of a sociopath. Perhaps maybe they look great. They look like they've got so much to offer you, but really, what are they hiding?
So interesting.
So, yeah. And then a couple of final points too that Jess actually added in is active manifestation and creating what we want.
Yeah, I really look at this card, and I think that's why I'm identifying it is just like we have, again, I will say it, we have all the power. We have all the power within ourselves to choose what we want and to create what we want. And there's challenges for sure, but we cannot be victims here, people. We have to be active in our lives and creating what we want. And so to me, I'm choosing to view this 9 of Cups as, all right, here's where I'm at. How does this feel? And if it's not where I want to be, what can I do about it? And really take ownership of my life. So,
you know, I'm noticing that as we move through the cups, and I'm sure that this is true of so many cards, maybe it's all the cards, and maybe it just depends on who you have these conversations with, but that we kind of all have some very shared views, but also some very separate views. And I'm like, is this because this is the emotional suit and our emotions are so personal and sort of subjective? And so we all come at it from, you know, that different moodiness in a way. But yeah, it's just, it's really striking that we're bringing such different perspectives to this suit.
Yeah. And I think too with tarot, and part of being a good reader is having your own perspective on things. Of course, we've mentioned this in the past, but our own experiences, everybody's got their own individual path and journey that's, you know, taught them different lessons that we're going to associate with these cards.
Yeah.
And we talked ages ago in the episode about like getting a reading from someone, I believe. And we were saying like, everyone has a different style of reading. So that's why some people will gravitate towards one reader and others will gravitate towards another.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you'll never get the same reading, even if it's all the same cards, you know? All right, so this is Jupiter in Pisces, and the title is Happiness. And Jupiter is at home in Pisces. So Jupiter is a planet of expansion, luck, faith, optimism. And as I mentioned about Pisces, it's very imaginative, sympathetic, sensitive, selfless. And to me, this is just an abundance of good vibes. It's joy and love and bliss without restriction. It's just an expanding of faith and trust in something larger than ourselves. It's generosity, it's nourished emotions, but it can also maybe be a bit of indulgence or escapism and losing focus, or perhaps some excess and addiction. And that's just because Jupiter just wants to keep expanding, and Pisces is a very expansive sign. When we think about the different types of water, let's say, you know, we'd have Cancer being maybe a waterfall or something, and maybe Scorpio is a river, but Pisces is just the ocean. It's just so vast. You can't count the amount of water in the ocean, right? Like, I mean, you can't really count drops of water regardless, but you can measure a cup of water, but you can't measure Pisces. And that's kind of the same with Jupiter. It's just so expansive. And so when something is really, really good, maybe they want more. And so, yeah, I kind of see these things that Jekanovia is talking about in this way. And so making sure that it is on that more positive and joyful side of things.
Yeah. The excess and addiction, I can see where that's coming from. And as you were talking about that, I'm like, wow, that's exactly what we were saying, where we are limitless. Like we truly are infinite. Yeah. So let's embrace that. Believe it, people. Okay. So questions to consider. Can you envision possibilities that are actively more heart-centered than you were living before? If you could create your life in any way, what would it be? And this is what I'm like, people, we can do it every day, in every moment. It's hard, right? Because if we're really struggling with something, we need to feel those feelings. I'm not saying, put a plastic smile on and walk through the day. Definitely feel the feelings and be actively choosing something different if it's not resonating and pulling yourself in that direction to create a different feeling. Our brains, as I have said, we build these neural pathways and they get very deep and these thoughts come back and these patterns are hard to break, but we can create new neuron connections in our brains to create new patterns of thinking. And that's why even just the meditations and mantras and really putting down on paper what we want our lives to look like. And that then becomes our thoughts, become the words, becomes the reality that we are living. And last question, if we really desire something, if the desire comes from the heart, is there any way we can be open to that thing? And so that's giving yourself the infinite possibilities and believing that you deserve it. We are our own limitations. We put all of the limitations on ourselves. And truly, as I said, there is no limit. If we want it, we will make it happen and we can achieve it. I do believe that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have arrived at the 10 of Cups. Has the final card in our numerological lineup, of course, not taking in consideration our court cards, but with the 10 of Cups, this is our happily ever now. So external, radiating success, family, calm, kind of that picture perfect or idyllic life, a state of mind that is at peace and in the heart. And achievement of the goal. So healing work with that inner child, feeling fulfilled, finding hope, renewed faith, or appreciating the moment. Oh, so many beautiful things there. So Jekanovia, what else do we have?
Now, I would say this is probably more of a reversal, meaning that I hold to this card, but it can also be about making sure that you're being conscious that not everything is as it seems. So if we think about this in like social media, we only see the highlights of people's lives. It's very often staged to give the impression that everything is perfect. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm going to say many times, probably all the time, things aren't all sunshine and rainbows. And this is a saying that I believe my great grandmother used to say, the grass is always greener when it's fertilized with bullshit. Oh, so just keep that in mind.
Grandma.
Yes.
Love that. Yes. Yes. So true. And again, considering, what is the reality here, and also recognizing that if we are spending a lot of time looking outside of ourselves for that fulfillment, then we will never be happy. And it's not our jobs to put ourselves in line with everyone else's lives. It's their lives, right? It's not our life. We have to create our own. Were you going to say something, Jekanovia? Was that, or Jasmine?
No, I was just agreeing with everything that was being said.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So a couple of other thoughts as we consider this card. It invites us to find joy in whatever is here for us in this moment, in this life, whether it is what we wanted or thought we wanted or not. And a reminder to always acknowledge the sweet moments, truly living a heart-centered life.
All right. So this is Mars in Pisces, the title being satiety, however you want to say it. And Mars is a planet of passion, desire, ambition, and will. And as we've already been through with Pisces, it's imaginative, it's sympathetic and sensitive and just so vast and sort of enmeshing. We have this assertive and we are assertive and determined towards our ideals and beliefs. We have the drive of Mars helping us to achieve our dreams and actually bringing these visions to life. We have passion without overbearing intensity. I was sort of thinking about it in terms of like you work hard and then you play hard. And that's like a very kind of Mars thing, but then mixing it with that Pisces vibe. It's a toast to your victories, and it's somewhere over the rainbow is actually just right here.
Aw, it's lovely.
I love that because it's just totally Wizard of Oz magic there.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Yes.
Some of the questions we have for the 10 of Cups are, can you easily access joy at some level in whatever state your existence happens to be in? This includes not emotionally bypassing your feelings, but to know at a greater level that you are loved and whole. This was from Jess, of course. You can always tell when it was from Jess. That is so beautifully worded too and so deep. Also, can you stay in the power of now without fear of the future or regrets of the past? And probably my absolute favorite question of the whole night is, what are the rainbows in your life?
Yes, that is so pretty.
I've always loved rainbows. And I think there are a lot of people that do. I mean, there's just something so incredibly magical about the rainbow.
And I mean, I don't know if it's because now sort of in more modern day, we associate it with, you know, the pride flag, but it just feels welcoming and inclusive and like you're at home in a way. I don't know. Maybe not everyone sees it that way, but.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it represents the full spectrum of everything that the light, like everything that is light. So to me, it's just everything all in one place. And it's that feeling of wholeness.
Yeah.
Harmony, yes. And everything is whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we are the rainbow, right? Our chakras are these beautiful colors going up our hara line. I mean, we are a rainbow and so cosmically infinite that, yes, people just accept it. I'm sorry. You're amazing. You are the rainbow. So just wear it.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Bring it in. And so I've got a couple things as we wrap up this conversation. So apologies in advance for the long-winded Jessie scenario here, but we've got a
Why are you
quote from Lindsay
apologizing?
Mack.
You're a rainbow. You're a rainbow.
Don't
Embrace
you
it.
dare. You share wisdom.
Well, this is Lindsay Mack's wisdom, and I just thought it was too beautiful not to bring into the conversation. And so this is a quote from her on the 10 of Cups. So it means that we don't leave the heart anymore. It means that we tether back to the heart. It means that the heart can come with us in any moment. That means that just as we make space in the 5 for our grief, we can make space at the table for our joy. That even if we're going through really challenging times, that doesn't need to keep joy out. It never needs to keep joy out.
So lovely.
Yeah. And I mean, if we can look at the cups as really this space of the relationship with our hearts, you know, at the very fundamental place as these cards come up, checking in with heart. I was reading most nights before I go to bed, I try to read a excerpt from Melody Beatty's book, Journey to the Heart, which is a really beautiful book. Everybody could benefit from having this in their library, and it's daily meditations on the path to freeing your soul. And she has such medicinal words to share. But when I read this last night, I just thought of the cups, and it seemed to be exactly what we were planning to talk about. So if you don't mind, Coven, I'm gonna read an excerpt from this book, and the title is "Discover the Power of Loving Yourself." All right, indulge me. Sometimes it's hard to trust life with all its sudden twists, turns, and storms. When something unexpected or painful happens, when we become blocked or frustrated, when life takes a different course than we'd hoped it would, it's easy to stop trusting the flow of our lives. I didn't ask for this. It's not fair. I don't want this. We think. This road isn't leading anywhere, at least nowhere I want to go. Often when we feel life has turned on us, we respond by turning on ourselves. But turning on ourselves doesn't help. In fact, it can compound the situation. It can prevent us from hearing and acting on the very guidance that will lead us through, get us through, and take us to the next place. It can prevent us from hearing our heart. Keep loving yourself and taking care of yourself, no matter what. Through the storms, the twists, the turns, and the blocks, take a moment, breathe deep, restore yourself to that sacred place of self-love and self-responsibility. Feel all your feelings, then let them go. Love yourself until you can hear your heart and what it tells you to do. Love yourself until you find the courage to act on that guidance. Loving yourself is a powerful tool, a powerful force for change. It can reconnect you to creativity, to universal love, to the best possible flow of events within your life. It can and will reconnect you to life's magic. There is a trustworthy road through whatever life brings. Loving yourself will help you find it. So that is Melody Beatty, Journey to the Heart excerpt for one of the days in November. So you know when we're recording this. But yeah, when I think of cups now, it is much different than when I first started working with the cups. And I see this as a very important reminder to all of us, especially now. And it's like, let's all love ourselves first and foremost, because that allows us to then expend all of that love into our world. And it needs so much of that love right now. So love yourselves.
Mm-hmm. So glad you shared that.
Thanks for listening.
I think I'm probably going to re-listen to that 20 to 30 times after this,
Right?
after this episode airs. I'm just saying.
It's like a mini meditation almost.
It's a great book, and it is one that just always seems to have the appropriate message at the right time. And if you're not hearing these things from people in your world or around you, and it's hard for you to come up with these thoughts for yourself, definitely check out books like this and bring them into your life, because it's a reminder of your true highest consciousness and really just your magic. Reconnect with your magic. It's there.
Yeah, I'll definitely put the title of that in the show notes so people can, so don't worry if you didn't write it down or anything. It'll be in the show notes for everyone. Well,
thank you, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I feel
That
like
was fun.
my cup is overflowing. I'm maybe even a little bit soaked from all this deep diving.
This is probably the most fun I've had with the cup.
We've just been splish splashing around for a couple hours here. It's been great. But
I mean, you might need to go watch something really like cold and just to get all those Scorpio feelings back. So
it's okay. I can tap into that Scorpio darkness anytime.
Well, I learned a lot.
This was great. I think I said this towards the beginning, but it's just so mushy, gushy, mushy, whooshy. I love it. I think I love the cups more now than I ever have. Just all these new perspectives and just looking at it from this really, I don't know, loving yourself. And it's great.
I feel like we should wrap up this episode with like a Delilah song. Do you guys have Delilah in Canada? The radio she's a well-known radio DJ who is known for her romantic. It's kind of like she always plays the love songs, and then at holiday time she plays all the Christmas songs. But it's Delilah, and she's so ooey gooey, and I definitely appreciate the love space that she brings to the world. But yeah, it's totally that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'll see if
now
I can
to Google Delilah.
Yeah, I'm going to Google it. I'll see if I can find a sound clip. Listeners, you'll know because I'll put it in right here.
I'm Delilah on B105.7. Delilah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And we'll see you in a couple weeks with a new episode.
Bye.
Much love, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tarot Coven Cast. Stay tuned for our next episode, our last full-length episode before 2021, where we'll be interviewing a very special guest. And until then, everyone, keep making magic.